I'm Tim Plamper. I curated this exhibition, Mental Hotspot. It's held at OOW Architects at Leipziger Straße in Berlin. The exhibition comprises 16 works of mostly Berlin artists. And this is the first piece by Philip Topolovac. It's called I've Never Been to Berghain. If you know that this is the entrance, the door. Yeah, for me it was really nice to have this piece here in the exhibition because it really builds the bridge in between the art and the architecture. And he developed this particular piece for an exhibition in Rome, and it's based on the historical practice of building cork models of ancient sites you could buy in Italy for the Grand Tour and bring them back home to either show off or to study them later on. Philip really adapted this kind of precise form and built this new contemporary temple in cork. It actually broke on the opening because a bottle fell down and the whole thing looked like a landscape of Caspar David Friedrich. Philip was complaining at the beginning about this spot because it was so unpresent, kind of remote, but then he really got all the attention. We are also happy that actually the insurance paid. I think it's all fine for him. So that's a piece by Alona Rodeh. She concentrates in her work like a lot about like safety environments, like the modern way to deal with these issues, and she's really into it. And I mean, here it's a very specific piece, and I like it on this black wall because it's also shining and it has some sculptural quality. I think in this particular piece, it's mainly these phosphorescent things that interest her, but she's really committed in the whole thing. And to build the bridge to the Berghain, she did an internship with the fireman at the station close to Berghain for 1 year, hanging around with them, like really getting to know their environment, their work atmosphere and background, and really learning about like the deep structures of this kind of institution. Then this is a piece by Rebekka Benzenberg. She's the youngest artist, I think, in this exhibition. For it's mostly about like taking the old furs that are coming with a lot of history, a lot of narratives on themselves, but then she shaves them. And if you look at it, it's really kind of violent act, and she doesn't really care so much like how it's done. It's really like there's a lot of violence inside, and then she overrides the old narrative with her own contemporary narrative. It's really tattoo on the skin of the animal, like introducing a kind of contemporary narrative on this very ancient narrative of the fur, which is first of all also a luxury object. And when you look at the witch, you can actually, I think, grasp it more because it has a shaman tradition also, I think. So it's a kind of, let's say, not religious, but a kind of psychological tool also of transforming, bringing meaning into life and changing the meaning of or the mind of people to heal or to destroy, I guess. We continue with this piece by Emma Adler. She's also a Berlin artist, and she does something similar, also using everyday objects, which are sinks, and transforming them in something very poetical, very open, and astonishingly new, because I mean, like the single things themselves, they would be super ugly objects, but like by the trick of putting them together in this mirror position, she brings some magic inside, and at the same time it has a deep connotation of art history when you think of Duchamp and the pissoir, the ready-made, and also having them here in the architectural office. It's really interesting because I think people can't really read if it's like their showroom or if it's actually art. That was very important for me to build this bridge in between the two practices and find elements that transmit the idea, the concept. So that's Yorgos Stamkopoulos, and what looks like a painting is actually a rather sculptural product, because he doesn't really see what he's painting, because he starts with a translucent primer on the surface, which will in the end will be removed. So he works with primer, with primer again, with color again, and at the very end he peels it off the canvas. And it's about the thickness of the material, and then the image reveals itself at the very end. And it's rather the result of the sculptural process of like layering materials than painting an image, because he doesn't know how the image will look like. That's a piece by Nezhnaya, and there's also a translation process involved, because this is a result of a sketch on her iPhone, which she mostly does like while traveling on the public transport or on the taxi, and they're very quickly done, you know, and then she decides at the end which ones to bring into a different reality, like bringing the digital back into the physical world. And for me, this piece is in particular interesting for the exhibition, which is called Mental Hotspot. And I think this piece really radiates into the sky, it changes the environment and really shows the conceptual background. Then we go here to Fette Sans. It's a very interesting object, especially if you touch it, because it's latex, it's steel, and it's pills filled with strange minerals. And it's a lot about seduction and desires. It asks a lot of questions. For me, it's the most Berlin piece here. It really communicates with the image Berlin has, like as a club environment of promises and desires. People come here for reasons. It's a super beautiful mixture of conceptual art, sculpture, narratives, sensuality, and storytelling, which is super subtle. I just love it. This is kind of the vanity room, because I mean, obviously this piece quotes the skull as a metaphor, a symbol for vanity, and also that's Lukas Glinkowski. And what I like about this piece is in particular that it's actually a mirror, and it also transmits the idea of like bringing together the spaces here, and you become, while looking at it, part of the object, part of the artwork. Also the environment becomes part of the artwork, and at the same time it mirrors back. And also Patrick Alt, who I in particular like for his straight, radical painting. It's called Tan Flower. The flower is also a motive of vanity and a very traditional painting object, I think, or like sujet. And at the same time, he combines that with the note of tan. Like there are tan and pin paintings, so it's really connecting to the idea of the digital commercial world, and bringing these two things together as a notion of like the power of man to actually reconquer living space, I think, and fighting against the vanity towards death and towards capitalism. How green it is here. You like it?
I said it smells like the back of a computer, like
To build the bridge, this is a piece by Jason Gringer. He's a Canadian artist living in Berlin since a decade. And for me, it relates really to Lukas, but it's very different because this surface is destroyed and it captures like a kind of explosion, but frozen. It's like time is standing still, and he captures all this energy in this object. It's like a battery of violence or like will, and it's the most heavy piece in the exhibition, 40 kilograms. It's steel and plexi, all glued together. Yeah, it's a very intense practice, which I think kind of relates to the piece of Christian Kölbl, because it also transmits the idea, or wants to transmit the idea of something violent, but also desirable. It's a conceptual piece called Neuwagen. It's a perfume, but it's also professional perfume. So it's professionally produced. You can use it every day on the everyday life. And it's like the new car. It should transmit the idea of the desire for this new object, which is like really charged with so much connotations culturally, society-wise, and also capital-wise, and like bringing it here in this environment, because these are the work desks of the architects. That's a commercial. It totally fits. These ugly computers become something beautiful. This product gets a new connotation. I always have to think of American Psycho somehow. And then here we have a piece by Lisa Tiemann. And I think this is a kind of sculptural space here, and I really like her practice. It's called Couple, and it's really about bringing together these two materials, which is paper mache and clay. And she develops them together, and then she burns the clay, and it shrinks, it changes its shape slightly, and then she brings it together. And I think this kind of tension that's in there that you can see, which is rather a dance, you can also find here in Jason Gringer's work, where it's rather not a dance, but a kind of fight, or in without motion anymore, like a still from a fight. And especially what I like here is like also like combining this artwork with the studio here, the architectural studio. And if you film here, you see this cable, and it, you know, it repeats the form. And also this ugly table becomes something precious, and it changes its appearance. That's what I really like to do in this exhibition. Then we come here to my piece, the work from 2015. And while planning the exhibition, I immediately knew that I wanted to show this particular piece here because it really fits into the shelves. You have this weird object, which is a kind of shelf for showing people how to imagine their homes. And this piece is called HKMK, which is the short version of Heinrich von Kleist, Michael Kohlhaas. And what you see is actually the whole novel translated into wooden mahogany sticks. After each sign of the inside of the text, we made a break and then put it in the center and extruded it like in a radial form. And that's the result. And it's a lot about translating meaning into something, like from text into image, that interests me since a long time in my own practice, and what happens and what you can find. And in the end, it's a poetic abstraction that comes out, and it rather asks questions than it brings answers. Actually, the historical Kohlhaas was killed in Berlin at Strausberger Platz. So the author also killed himself in Berlin, which seems to be a violent city. Yeah, here we have Billy Clarken with her piece Suspension of Disbelief. And I was very happy and grateful for the architects to actually allow to put this piece on the desk, because that was kind of the key element to demonstrate the approach of the curation, like really intruding the space, intertwining these two practices, art and architecture, and putting it here. And interestingly, originally she developed this piece for a museum in the States. And in this museum space, she built a wall similar to this ceiling here. So it fits like conceptually, I think, from her approach, but intrudes the space really massively, like a monolith. What I like is the connection in between this pattern, which is very digital. And I think the digital is also in mind, this kind of translation process, but also the screensaver and the computational work the architects perform here each day. Yeah, then we come to the last piece here, which is Charlotte Klobassa. And yeah, maybe this is really the best last piece I could have thought of, because we really decided to open the ceiling here, leave it open, don't hide anything, put it in really roughly, and also like trusting the power of the artwork to actually defend itself to the background. And it works perfectly, actually. I think it even emphasizes the quality of the artwork, that it's strong enough to hang in front of the litter and really being inside of the working environment and hanging out of this wound of the ceiling, and at the same time building a bridge to the upright elements you see down there in the space. Yeah, I think I'm done. Thank you very much.
What was your favorite piece?
What's your favorite piece?
I like the perfume a lot, but I also love Emma's work, Emma Adler, the basins on the wall, soft shell. Hello microphone, hi.
Yes, so this was definitely one of my favorite pieces in this exhibition. That was so beautifully curated. I love her work so much because she has the skill of using materials that are actually so heavy and so robust, and makes them look like fluid and really light, and it dialogues so perfectly with the architecture office, because that's also a goal in architecture, to kind of be the master of materials and give them the kind of effect that you choose as a creator that you want to give them. And also the contrast of everything. To me, it looks like a hug, like two bodies kind of curling up, and it has something super intimate and still very rough, like something with rough around the edges, something that's more smooth. I find it very beautiful. And as Tim also explained, like how it works with the space on this table and in dialogue with everything else, I think it's my favorite.